Hi. I wanted to first see if you could clarify something from the previous pitch that we had sent you. You had said that it was first approved as an emergency investigational new drug, and then was it approved for the clinical trial, or were these both concurrent, or are they one and the same? If you could clarify that, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, that's a key question. So the clinical trial that was proposed by the company is still under final review by the FDA, and so we were about to expect that, of course, a week ago or so, or even sooner than that, but that will be approved hopefully this week or so. But all three patients were all treated under an individual emergent IND approved by the FDA, with me as the principal investigator.
Okay, thank you. And so if you are the principal investigator, were you treating these patients solely under your care, or were these patients at other hospitals or other locations?
No, the patients, all three patients were very, very sick. They were all intubated. They were all in a COVID environment in our ICU here at Baptist, all three. And they were primarily treated under the care of Dr. Javier Fernandez, who is the chief of the ICU, with his ICU staff, but coordinated through my, through the approval FDA and my laboratory that is also needed to be involved, because you need to have a certified laboratory to get the stem cells, to thaw them and prepare them in a transfusion bag and get them to the nurse or to the patient.
Okay. And can you share their background on whether they're male or female?
Yeah, there were the first patient was a young woman, 32 years old. The second one was a man, 57, and the third patient was a man, 70 years old.
70, you said?
70, yeah, 70.
Okay, thank you.
So Dr. Kona, just to clarify, we need to get consent from the patients, but just from my knowledge, is the first one Ruthie? Is that who Michelle's been? We won't share that with the media until we get consent, but for my purposes, is that Ruthie that you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Perfect.
That we can, once we are done, I have another idea how we can get some press, because this could be a very personal story besides of the, novelty of the treatment and the medical aspects of it. But I think knowing that she's a nurse, and then I jumped in and said we can do this, and she was the first person and now is doing well. I mean, that could be a different approach to pitch that, I would believe, as a personal story. And then for that, we of course need to get her consent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, of course.
Dr. Kona, can you share, since we're talking about these patients, can you share their outcomes right now and your prognosis for them?
I can do it. But again, first at all, to know they were all very sick. And by very sick, I mean intubated in the ICU with maximum support of oxygen. And, let's say from medical perspective, limited chances in these cases to recover from the severe infection. So the three patients treated, including the first one, Ruthie, which we shouldn't, delete the name, but because it came up, she's doing very well. She's extubated. She got extubated on Friday night, and she's walking and going on her own to the bathroom, and so continues to improve. The second patient that was treated is also a lot better and very close to extubation. That was the male. The third patient, the 7-year-old patient, which induced my biggest concern, because number one, he was really very sick. Javier Fernandez called me and said, I'm not sure he's going to make it. And then in addition, I'm not sure you know the history of patients older than 65 and outcome on the ventilator. It's basically very limited. But long and behold, so I got the FDA approval. We treated him 3 or 4 days ago, in fact, not even. We treated him on Thursday, if I remember that correctly, and he's extubated. So he's doing very well. So
Wow.
he's still in the ICU, but he was extubated yesterday. And with that, I think we have some really good news to show. And most importantly, these mesenchymal stem cells from umbilical cord blood. These are the first 3 patients treated in Florida with mesenchymal stem cells. But I think also they have not been treated in the United States from cord blood derived for this infection.
Okay,
so that's a
great.
novelty of it.
Yeah, and when this clinical trial is approved, can you share how patients can be part of that trial? Will it be other hospitals, other providers across the nation that can be part of the trial if they have a patient?
Yeah.
Okay.
We will be the lead hospital on this clinical trial, and there is another called Sanford in Detroit. Sanford Hospital in Detroit is the second site. We will likely get approval to treat up to 40 patients on this clinical trial. And the eligibility, the criteria to when they should get the cells are exactly patients that are being intubated or just have been intubated with respiratory failure secondary to the COVID infection. That is the indication to treat them with these cells, as we did in these 3 patients as well.
Okay. Dr. Klona, can you share if there are any toxicities or potential for negative side effects? And is there anyone that is not a fit for this? So if they have an underlying health issue, for example, other treatment methods.
Good question. We don't have any toxicities observed at this point. All 3 patients had comorbidities that were still approved by the FDA. So with that, I feel really comfortable to administer primary to patients.
Can you share that again? You said all the patients had, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Called comorbidities. They had additional comorbidities, in other words, other risk factors. Like, age 70 is certainly a risk factor. The first patient has some, significant overweight, which is also a risk factor to come off the ventilator. And the second was very sick with a low blood pressure and other. I have to look back to that one, but he was really in a very bad shape with multi-organ failure.
Oh wow! Okay. And is this okay to release? Because this is definitely something that would prove your case, if it's okay to share.
With the press?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's not a personal. We are not allowed. I would not say that the first patient.
Yeah.
Yeah, we cannot identify a patient with a comorbidity and say the first one was overweight or so. I don't think that we should do, but we can certainly hint to other comorbidities and that the infusions were tolerated without any side effects.
Well, there was a New York Times article about obesity being a risk factor for coronavirus.
Yeah. Yes, it's known. I'm not sure it was in the New York Times as a comorbidity, but we were concerned about that, of course. But on the other hand, she had no other chance, right? So,
sure. Okay, so don't necessarily lead with it, but we could share.
Yeah, but it's a legitimate statement to say that overweight and older age are risk factors, and they were associated with these patients.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll do that. Can you share? So, with the clinical trial, how will you go about testing the mesenchymal stem cells? Since the patients are in an advanced stage, will they all receive the stem cells? Will they all receive treatment, or will some receive a placebo?
No, it's not a randomized trial. So they
not randomized.
They will.
Okay.
No, it's not a randomized trial. So
okay.
if the patients have the eligibility to get enrolled onto the clinical trial, in other words, again, sick with respiratory failure, needed to be intubated or on the intubator, then they are eligible, and then we can treat. We don't have to randomize.
That's great. Okay, thank you. Let's see, what else did I have here?
In fact, just thinking about your last question, but don't write this. But in fact,
Okay.
I think it's almost immoral unethical is the better word, to randomize them once they're in the incubator, because if you don't do anything, they have a limited chance to come off and survive. I think that was one of the reasons why I would not, ethically say, okay, we'll randomize you to the mesenchymal stem cells versus a normal saline infusion or something, and then, we'll find out that the one that got it made it, and the other ones didn't. So it's better to give it to all and then find out how many of the ones that got it really got through it, and that will indicate some potential. But I also have some very strong, what we call correlative studies involved. So we are really looking at cytokine levels of these patients before and after the infusion, which will provide us with scientific evidence after we had the chance to analyze everything, whether or not and to what degree the cells really helped to reduce the cytokines. Remember that.
Do you have this information ready for these 3 patients?
Not all, but for patient number 1, I can state that we have good evidence that the cytokines involved were reduced after the infusion. That correlates to the clinical improvement.
Okay. Now, a lot of these outlets are going to probably question the success, given what happened with Gilead and other treatment methods. So, to that, can you share what makes you optimistic, and why you're confident in sharing this right now?
Well, number one, without trashing the Gilead drug, but it has shown no effect. And you may also know that the treatment tutored by our president, hydroxychloroquine, for everybody around the world, and the more the better, with azithromycin in combination, led now to the recognition that the patients that were treated with hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin, compared to those with COVID infection that didn't get anything, did do worse, because the death rate in the treatment group is higher than in the non-treatment group, which is all associated with the side effects of hydroxychloroquine, with atrial fibrillation and heart failure. So that shot went backwards, and maybe Mr. Trump is the only one who is still taking hydroxychloroquine in this country, but he will. But anyway, so the reason why I'm optimistic here, it's a different patient cohort. So they're already intubated. They're already in respiratory failure. And as I might have stated before in other interviews we had, that in this situation, it's not necessarily the viral infection per se that you need to treat, because the cat is out of the bag and you have the cytokines in the lung and in the body. So you would need to treat the cytokine storm. And the mesenchymal stem cells have been proven to be able to reduce the cytokine storm. And that's why I'm optimistic. And then in addition, with frankly the unexpected outcome of these 3 patients, unexpected good outcome of these 3 patients, there is a good reason to be optimistic.
Okay. And then last, as far as media outlets, do you have a target outlet that you would like us to approach first? Like the New York Times, perhaps, or Wall Street Journal? And then to that note, just need to know if there are any times today that you are not available.
Today? Oh, you mean it will happen today? Well, I would be available any time after, let's say, 5 o'clock should be okay. Tomorrow morning should be okay. I'm not sure which newspaper to target. If you're connected, I'll leave that up to you. I thought the Miami Herald should certainly be interested in this story, because they published the idea of the mesenchymal stem cells, which are from the bone marrow, I guess, for the University of Miami. That was on the front page at some point. but they haven't really treated anybody at this point. So they may want to be interested in following up with the story, which would be fine. While we, for the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, maybe we should have we should wait until the third one is off the vent. That maybe tomorrow. Also, I'm treating. The ICU chief just called me last night and said I have another bad one here, and I'm applying for patient number 4 today, and on an emergent IND. And once we have that may be more New York Times material. But with the New York Times, I think it would also be really good to be able to state that now, after the 4 first patients treated, the clinical trial has been approved by the FDA, and we can now officially enroll. I think that would be stronger to go to those papers, unless they read it, and that happens, of course. If they read it in the Miami Herald, and then they get keen and say, "Oh, we want to add to it. Can we do that?" That's perfectly fine.
Okay. So would you be comfortable with us waiting then until tomorrow in hopes that both the FDA has approved your clinical trial and then you have more information on patient number 4?
Yeah, I think that's. I leave that up to you. It's a little time sensitive now because of the outcome, and that others are trying to jump on this bandwagon now. But nobody will take away that we are the first. That we did it.
Yeah.
The T cells have been treated, right? I leave that up to you. I think if you have contact to and remember that correctly, Patsy told me that she talks to Miami Herald every day. If they should be alerted and so know that's coming, and whenever they are ready, then I'm ready for them.
Okay.
So I agree. I think we'll move rather quickly, sooner rather than later. If that's okay with you, Dr. Kona. And definitely I'll work with Aaron onto our national strategy and local strategy, because sometimes we may need to lead maybe with the New York Times and give them a chance, and then the Herald, but we'll work it out. But definitely we'll be reaching out to both local and national, not to worry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And can you share a background while we have you on the phone about the patient number 4? Is it male, female, any underlying risk factors?
Yes, it's a female, also mid-50s, and has been very sick on the incubator with maximum support for blood pressure and respiratory failure, and has underlying kidney disease. In fact, she is hemodialysis dependent, which means kidneys are not working. She needs 3 times a week. She needs hemodialysis, which I think in itself are risk comorbidities again.
Okay. And is that okay to share?
I would wait until we have the FDA approval, and then I can certainly find out.
Okay.
I have a quick question, Dr. Kona. What's the difference? I know that the University of Miami, there was an announcement that they launched, also a trial on mesenchymal. Pretty much, I'm reading like their announcement here, and it sounds the same as the work you're doing. But forgive me, I'm sure I'm wrong about this. Like, what is the difference, or why do they not have patients yet? Like, are we ahead of the game because we have an actual patient and they don't? Can you just clarify the difference as to what they're doing?
Well, they did not. There are 2 differences. Number one, they did not apply for an emergent IND, which we did. And I really have to break a lance for the FDA here. All 3 reviewers and all 3 ladies at the FDA were completely supportive, and within hours reviewed and approved, so that we could treat these patients in the bad situation. They were waiting for their official clinical trial to open, and that's why they lost time, but not in a negative sense. We were just winning because we got the approval for the treatment of these 3 patients and maybe the 4th patient, while our clinical trial was at the review level, which is one thing. Then the difference is that the University of Miami clinical trial uses mesenchymal stem cells, yes, but they are derived from the bone marrow. And our mesenchymal stem cells are derived from umbilical cord blood lining, which which is again the reason that nobody else had done this in the situation, because we are the only ones that had access to get these umbilical cord blood-derived mesenchymal stem cells from this company. That makes a difference. Whether or not they're differentially effective in the long run, bone marrow better than these or the other way around, remains to be seen. They may be equally effective, but there may be differences, and they're differently derived cells. But in the end, they have been grown to become mesenchymal stem cells, and they expect to do exactly what we hope, that they reduce the cytokines. And in fact, we see it now in these three patients. I mean, this 70-year-old man, and that is off the record, I really did not believe that there's any chance for him, and I was really reluctant to treat him. Then I got this internal calling and say, "You do it," which I then did, and so now he's off. He's off.
Wow.
And that is a miracle. In 3 days, that is a miracle.
Yeah.
Wow.
When do you think we can interview Ruthie, Dr. Kona? I'm sorry if I'm asking quickly, but just
no, that's up to you. Now you wanted to give the ball into your court and say you need to consent her and you need to get in touch with her and say, look, here's this. She, by the way, I've never met her at this point, so she may not even have heard about the effort that's behind the whole scenery. Maybe she does, but I don't know. But I would think it's up to you if you want to get in touch with her at some point, or the family, and then get consent to write a story. I think it would be another aspect of this, as I said at the onset of our discussion. It would be really a very interesting, humane story to write about a nurse within the same institution that was treated for the first patient treated with these cells, and the first to come off the ventilator, and then the MCI team also collected money. We had this number to raise some money to support the young children. Mm-hmm. I think there's a lot of stuff in there, and at a certain point, I would be very interested in meeting her.
Definitely.
And Dr. Kona, just so we're on the same message, would it be fair to say that the clinical trial is expected to be approved this week?
The expectation is yes. If you want to write it like that, fine. I can certainly let you know as soon as I hear back. And I know there were on Friday night. They reviewed it. There were some residual questions and clarifications that was taken care of last Friday. Mm-hmm. So I would believe that if there's not anything more, then we should certainly hear about it. And I personally would expect this to happen between now and Wednesday.
I'm sorry, you cut out. I could not hear you.